Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the History of Fan Anime. I'm your host, William Chow. In today's episode, it's a really first of a series of episodes. I'm going to try to attempt to do something that I've not done before, but I always had the idea of, and that is to do a review on some written work about anime. Okay, so people have been using anime to write essays, to write like theses and documents, and obviously homework assignments and that kind of stuff about anime. And so in this episode is going to be a start of a long chain of episodes, because obviously to fully do an analysis on a written work, it may require me several episodes to go over different points and that kind of stuff. But um, this is one of these sort of rare situations I get to do this. So before I begin and talk about this, I want to remind people to go down below, click like, and click subscribe. Again, any sort of comments and things that you would write down does help the YouTube algorithm. So at least hitting that like definitely does really help. So do please do that. Again, if you want to support me financially, I do have the super thanks button available, as well as the PayPal and Patreon links. Again, I've now added a little more content to the Patreon. So again, if people who are interested in my new ebook that's out, I've now added video versions of that available now. Again, so again, you can go to the Patreon, you can log in for free, and again, I've made it so that any of the paid accounts, has access to that first ebook for free, and the video version, you get a massive discount on it as well. So in case you would like to get a video version of the ebook, okay, as well as the audiobook as well. So do check that out. Link is below. Okay, so as I said, in this episode, I'm going to be going through and doing analysis on these written pieces of work. So people have obviously submitted either thesis documents or maybe their homework assignments, or that's for some of the writing, creative writing, or in this case it's whatever studies that they happen to be doing. Okay, and it uses a lot of references to anime, and part of the reason why I made this this channel is to inform people and to record and document history, of this age of anime that we've had in North America. And a lot of people who are doing this kind of research and that kind of stuff are having problems finding actual sources and actual information in regards to this era of anime. Okay, and and I've seen it from people from Crunchyroll and people from various different magazines and that kind of stuff are all interviewing different people and are trying to find information about the origins of how anime got this way. So in today's episode, I've come across a piece of writing. Okay, it does have this sort of a political sort of type of leaning towards it. Okay, and again, I don't want to talk politics and that kind of stuff, and most people don't really care, especially on this particular part of the channel, because my emphasis is on this again, documenting a time period in our history that that transpired and isn't well documented. Not very many people have written too many articles and that kind of stuff about it, and not too many people, especially from this particular era, have basically documented what exactly has gone on in this thing. And so what ends up happening is people tend to rely on things like Google and whatnot to write their essays and to get confirmation bias on their particular works. And this is particularly poor when Google does not show results for things that happened in the 1990s or the 1980s, right? They actually need some people, some interviews, and that kind of stuff to be made. And that's, primarily one of the main functions of my channel here, is to provide this documentation, to show you pictures, to tell you stories and accounts, show you merchandise and things that came from that, and how we came across it, getting this stuff, what this means, tie in things that happen in anime with things that are happening in real life. Okay, and that's what I'm trying to do with that. So again, this isn't a typical type of episode, and the way that I'm tackling this episode is maybe a little bit strange and very very long. Okay, but I assure you, even though we are touching a little bit on politics, do not pay attention to it too much because I won't delve too deeply into it. Okay, I'll touch on it, but I won't really get into why what particular things that happen on that, because there's a lot of factors and that kind of stuff, and that's not what this particular channel is really about to. But what I want to address, and which is the most important thing, is when people do research, okay, and they go and try to find information that supports their research, okay, and they use Google and that kind of stuff, this is confirmation bias. The fact that you're specifically looking for information and looking for essentially yes men, okay, people that will say yes to whatever you say, to basically confirm what you're writing. And of course, this is really poor scientific method, right? And since the topic is anime, I want to be this person that comes in and says, okay, using my own accounts, my own and whatever evidence and documentations and that kind of stuff, fan letters and newsletters, merchandise, art books, or whatever that happens to be, that I have available as a historic archive. I want to present it to you and tell my story in helping you understand and build this picture, the story. If you want to, kind of have a vision that's not just in front of you but around you, right? What are all the other factors that transcribe around you? So when I describe what the environment of, let's say, an anime convention in 1991, or some of the funny stories and conflicts and cosplay and that kind of stuff that happened at Comic-Con in '89. Okay, I want to not only tell you the story, I want to see if I can get you some pictures. I want to give you some context of why this is this particular thing happened. Was there any other things happening at the con that might have transpired? What about any sort of popular culture things that were also happening, or news stories that was happening at that particular time that has a significance of why this sort of thing occurred in anime? And this is what I want to present. Okay, this is the history part and the accounting part and of course the recording of and documentating of this kind of history, because as I said, um, we're all getting older, okay, and if we don't tell our story, if we don't get it, told in and documented, then we may become people like Carl Masick, Don Yee, Torrance Smith, all these people who are pivotal members of the anime community, but they're no longer around anymore, and they can't tell their story, and and all the things, whether or not good, bad, conflicts, their opinions on stuff, on how they handled things, and all the inside stories that we can't find on Google, and people didn't post on any sort of form, gets lost. Okay, that part of history is lost, and until someone comes through and documents it, maybe brings out some receipts and brings out some scripts or things of basically historical importance, okay, like these anime artifacts, if you will, okay, um, you know their story will never be fully, as I said, fully appreciated and fully understood, and then it'll be just basically left for interpretation. And one good example I just did a few episodes ago is the story of the most mysterious song on the internet. Okay, the mere fact that it is highly possible that most members of the band who wrote that song are no longer around. Even the producer that probably made that thing is probably, maybe, possibly no longer around. And with that, it may be very impossible to find out who exactly wrote that song and where it came from and that kind of stuff. And it may be just one of those untold, basically unsolved mysteries, right? And in this era, at this particular time, there should be no excuse for these untold mysteries or unsolved unresolved and unsolved anime things in history. Because as I said, we are still very, very young. As I said, we have entered a year of 40 years of anime in North America here. We should be able to have and document our own history and be able to do that, because as I said, we're not that old yet. Not that old yet, so let's get that. Okay, so anyway, I apologize for such a long opening. But yes, so here we're going to be in. I'm going to break this up into smaller episodes, and I'm going to kind of spread them out so that it's more digestible, and people can think about and do the different things rather than one big, huge 5-hour, 6-hour long video. Okay, so I'll break it up for you. All right. So without further delay, let's begin.
Getting along? Yet, as I demonstrated throughout this paper, no you haven't, their identity as female fans have also been discursively and representatively absent in the online anime fandom. So here you have, she listed a whole bunch of different female fans, okay? And, some have, some online presence and some have virtually none. But here you're going saying, okay, yeah, they can be absent online, from anime fandom, as well greatly outnumbered by the male anime fans, technically online, with the exception of the predominantly female fandoms of boys love, BL manga, and anime that exists mainly in its own transnational and female-centered networks. Well, you seem to have, demonstrated that you've put two things together in one. So you, on one hand, you say, oh, they're absent on the online fandom, okay, meaning they're not present in male-dominated spaces such as rec.arts, whatever, because they don't have news groups and things designed for them. Get it? Right? You're talking about all this discourse about this whole entire mimic logic, as you even created, using spreadable media. Okay, the two pieces of scientific things that you put on there, right? And here you go, saying that all that stuff is absent in this thing called rec.arts.anime, which is the only thing that you used examples for. You only use this, right? Okay, and you're saying that, because they are absent in this particular thing, right, where there's a great outnumbered many of male fans and that kind of stuff, okay, then you go, wait a minute, there's the exception of predominantly male fandom, okay, female fandoms, okay, so all of a sudden they decided, wait a minute, we're going to make all these other, female-centered networks, i.e., they made their own mailing list. They made their own GeoCities pages. They made their own chat rooms. And then finally, when they got to the Facebook era, they made their own Facebook groups. Right? Because rec.arts.anime was an archaic style and very anarchist style of news group that everybody dropped because no one wants to use it anymore. And then they realized, hey, there's so much better stuff out there, and so they decided to build their own. And all these female people, empowered themselves, and they created their own Facebook pages, they created their own MLs, they created all this other stuff. I mean, you mentioned lots of people who have their own fan clubs. Do they require an online presence? No. I mean, Anime Hashen distributed their own mailing list, and they had their own newsletter. Right? Did they need online presence? What is this online presence that you have to have in this era? You didn't have to have it. They operated perfectly fine. They got a good membership. I even paid money to go into that membership, so there was no problem in that. There was no indication in any of those letters that or any of those people following feminist ideals like Trish Ledoux was. They just wanted to run an anime club. They wanted to help, spread the word of anime. Not have some sort of agenda like you seem to think that everyone has. And when people do that and they realize that, hey, you are actually, more interested in this the interest of the fans, the promotion of the anime, not the agenda. And then people do appreciate that. Okay, and you're right. A whole bunch of the fandoms that deal specifically with boys' love. So now we're getting into yaoi stuff and sure, maybe some yuri stuff if you want. This is where the increase of all the interest of things like Marmalade Boy, His and Her Circumstances, things like Prince of Tennis, all this other stuff. Sure, everyone started making their own groups and that kind of stuff, and they went away from rec.arts.anime because it didn't serve its purpose. And so people end up doing their own things, created their own spreadable media. They became, the ground zero, and no one was stopping them. No negative networking, as you say, happens because people, these people, if they wanted to make such a news group and that kind of stuff, as you even said, De Silva made her own thing in 1995, right? So she became ground zero. Where's this negative networking that affected her? No, she decided, I said, we're going to dump this wounded animal, right? Because, Anorex, the news group, Usenet, was going downhill anyway. It was a wounded, it's a wounded whale, waiting to sink to the bottom of the ocean anyway, right? It's the Titanic that already hit the iceberg by 1995, okay? So there's no point putting bandages on that thing anyway. It was going down. So, the people that jumped off the ship already and got onto the boats, they've gone on. There is no negative networking going on anymore because no one's using Titanics anymore, okay? People are using totally different mediums. They are making their own things. So, yeah, you haven't demonstrated nothing. She also continues to write, additionally, it appears from my research that many of those women's roles have been diminished or erased beyond online discourses, often to the benefit or profit of those men who are associated with. Okay, so basically, what she's done, okay, is she's used the lack of, confirmation bias, right? So basically, I can't find any information about this on the internet. No, duh. Okay, that seems to support the fact that all these women, the anime hashin and all these different CFO chapters, that occurred, and that kind of stuff. You know why? Because no one is recording that. Very, very few people are doing it. And as a matter of fact, part of the reason why I have my YouTube channel is because I realize this. There is a rich history that happened in North America of how anime got here and whatnot, okay? But no one's documenting it, okay? And, truthfully, the only people that can document it and do it properly, okay, are the people that are still around, right? We've already lost Stephen Pearl, one of the the great people that have basically shepherded the anime rec.arts. Okay, and it can't. It's right now. He can't defend himself with all this feminist BS. Okay, and we can't get his words and because you type some search engine on Google and you try to do rec.anime history or whatever like that, and very, very few results come up. Okay, did you even bother trying to contact these people? Like, Ken Ormandy, which I literally found his letter and put it on and posted it up online so that you can see how we communicated and how we used something that's not anime rec.anime, right? You can see my channel has, hundreds of episodes, and I'm trying to paint this picture for everyone. Oh, because it's not online and available for you to use Google to get confirmation bias.
One of the great challenges in this world is knowing enough about a subject to think you're right, but not enough about the subject to know you're wrong. We all have susceptibility to bias. Search engines on the internet are the epitome of confirmation bias. And you're going to use that as evidence that you are correct? No. The good thing about science is that it's true whether or not you believe in it. What does it mean to be skeptical? What does it mean to be convinced by data? A proper skeptic questions what they're unsure of, but recognizes when valid evidence is presented to change their mind.
Oh, it must be, erased or diminished or, buried upon the piles of crap out there. Okay? No. This is exactly what happens. Just because you can't Google, let's say soldiers' accounts on D-Day. Oh, then that means all the those the heroism and all that kind of stuff that happened on D-Day and on the beach of Normandy. Oh, we're diminishing all those things. We're getting rid of them, and they're all getting erased because you can't find any of them online. Do you see how silly that sounds? Right? So yeah, there is a very rich history. There are still people around that can probably that can very accurately, give their account to what's happening. Okay, did you interview any of these people? Fred Patton, Randall Stookley, Kurt Black. Did you any of these things? Unfortunately, Carl Masick is no longer with us. Did you interview any of these people? Did you interview Mr. Lee? About his, because he's one of the very people who actually wrote some sort of construct and actually fairly detailed outlined exactly what happened. Did you interview him to find out more information? Can you be a little more clear exactly what happened? No, you didn't. Too much work, right? Because you can access that through Google. Google didn't didn't provide you with that confirmation bias. And you didn't want to because maybe when you interview these people, I've met Fred Patton, very very nice guy, right? He probably goes through, sure, I probably did a lot of work for is the face of the CFO, but I'm pretty sure he would probably say but it wasn't me that did all the work. There was a lot of people in the background that did a lot of that helped out. Sure, and I'm sure a lot of people, different names and stuff like maybe Ann's and that kind of stuff will pop up and say definitely a hard worker, did all this other stuff, absolutely. And sure, you can Google and try to find some of the heads of different CFOs. You can try to Google and try to find stuff that happens with Anime Hashin. Try to find photographs or videos of things like that. There weren't any. And you know why? Because not everyone had, we're talking in an era before the 2000s, right? This is an era where people actually had to take photographs using a camera. And then they had to take it to like a drugstore or like a photo store, pay like $20 or whatever it is to actually develop it and put it onto photographs, I'm sure you're spoiled with your cell phone going, I'm going to take a picture of my food, I'm going to take a picture of my face, I'm going to take a picture of my dog, and all this other stuff, right? And it doesn't cost you any money. Well, in the past, you actually had to pay money for every photo that you took. So it was pretty rare that, we had pictures. But, I have pictures, a couple pictures of a few of our meetings, both when we had them at Trout Lake and both when we had at Douglas College. And it showed good interaction. And just because you can't find these pictures and these images and these alternate forms of media, okay, and you can't, get confirmation on paper, you can't get any interviews, you're going to say, no, all these women's roles have been diminished and erased beyond online discourses because they never existed on an online discourse, right? Someone has to take those photographs and scan them in, okay? Sure, I have a whole bunch of pictures of my original store, back in the 1990s, and I have, pictures of, our online meetings, and I've made multiple videos where I posted those up and showed them. But will they show up in a Google search? No, they won't. But yet your research obviously didn't go and try to look up those things and didn't see that. There's this whole other. More popular and more accessible means of communication, namely the mail system, U.S. Post, right? Canada Post. People also communicated using now messengers, especially when it started reaching the late 90s and into the 2000s. people started using messengers and chat groups and made use of actual, the infancy of web pages. Okay, they got away from this thing. So here you are, you're basing all this history and whatever on a literally a dead platform. And because you can't find any information other than Google groups, literally, you tried to use Google and nothing came up, and all you could find was like 200 and something messages. One out of 1,000 messages that you found for your so-called paper here. And you consider that, oh, well, because I couldn't find any, they all must have been erased and everyone's going to be, forgotten. Well, if some of these people that still are around, would write messages and maybe, go on to Facebook and look up people like, Alec Orlock and all these people that were around at that particular time, then maybe you would get a better picture of what actually happens. But again, short of what you typed in Google, you can't do that. There's a lot more legwork that needs to be done. And that's part of the reason why I'm making this video, and part of why I have this entire channel is because I already realize that there's a large chunk of our history in North America here in regards to anime which isn't documented. The stories are out there, and when those people, we've lost many, right? One of the close people that I went down to San Diego Comic-Con and that kind of stuff with was Don Yee. He's the one of the main key guys that was in the Art of Robotech. I've tried to tell a couple of good stories about him and the good experience. Like he'd help everybody out, and he was so approachable. Nicest guy around, I can tell you, definitely. These are the kind of stories that we need to archive, to tell, so that people remember these people, and make note of things. Now, I don't know if someone should make a Wikipedia page of notable people in history and write down their stories or whatever. I don't know what will happen, or whatever, make a museum of early anime history or something. Whatever, something should be made or done up about that, or maybe an online museum for early anime fans and that kind of stuff. That maybe that's something that needs to be done. But the stories are out there. You just have to do the research, and it's not just as simple as, oh, I did my research on Google and I couldn't find anything. That doesn't pass the baloney test.
There are many hypotheses in science which are wrong. That's perfectly all right. It's the aperture to finding out what's right. Science is a self-correcting process. To be accepted, new ideas must survive the most rigorous standards of evidence and scrutiny.
Thank you for sticking along and basically staying with it for this long. I really appreciate that. I said again, this is not typical content that I like to to do, and but I think it's very interesting. Not so much for the the topic or whatever of the particular essay here, okay? Because I don't that's probably that's politics and that kind of stuff is something I don't want to get into on this particular channel. But again, the importance of is correctly documenting events that happened in the past, especially in this very important golden era part of anime, and making and setting the record straight. You can make your own interpretations, and as when I remember when I took when I was on jury duty, okay, someone made a very prolific statement, okay, which really shaped the way how I think and interpret things. And this is what he said. You can choose to not believe, partially believe, total believe, none, some, or all of the evidence. Okay? So think about that. You can either, and this is it. There's, you've provided 6 different possibilities for one particular type of outcome. So if someone presents you a piece of information, You know, you can choose to 0% believe none of it. Okay, like you have no confidence in it. You can have some belief or some particular confidence of some level, or you can be totally invested in believing this thing. Okay, but also you can also choose to believe none of the evidence. So, if multiple pieces or one piece of evidence that has different facets of it, you can choose to believe none of that. Maybe some parts of the evidence you deem credible and you will believe some parts of that. Or you trust the evidence, okay, so you fully believe that this evidence is 100% all parts of the evidence, so all the evidence as a whole, and you can choose to believe none of it, some of it, or all of it. And you can choose what level you believe it to, whether or not you just decide to 100% with or 0% confidence in any parts of that, partial confidence in 0 to all of it, or 100% confidence in none or all of it. Okay? Seems kind of confusing, but at the same time, it really resonated with me about how you would learn to interpret things and take the parts that you want to, that you feel credible, okay, and then you can analyze that using critical thinking to determine whether or not you wish to add this to your base of knowledge or disregard it as just total fluff. Or maybe something in the middle. Partially you agree with certain parts, you don't agree with certain parts, you feel fuzzy about certain parts, but you're confident that the evidence is actually true, but you're not really sure. Well, that's so it handles all the different gray zones, both positively on that. So again,
The goal here is to train your mind how to see the world differently, how to question what others say. I've come to realize that there are 3 categories of truth: personal truth, political truths, and the objective truths that shape our understanding of the universe. The interesting thing about an objective truth is that it's true no matter what. Imagine that.
that's just something one story I like to reflect on. But again, we have more episodes of this. This is a fairly long essay, but as I said, I'll split up the episodes and have more of that again. So thank you for staying on this long. But again, don't be turned off by the fact of the topic that this is about. Because I'm not going to try to cover the politics and that kind of stuff a little bit. I'll touch on it a little bit just because I have to. But for the most part, I want to stick to the history. All right. So thank you again, and I will see you in the next episode. So until next time, I will see you again.